Good day, everyone. So, how's your day? I hope you're still fine. So, this day we are going to have just a continuation of conditional statements. Okay? So, let us have this slide. You are going to read and analyze the statements below. So, for number 1, we have, if it rains, then the ground is wet. For number 2, we have, if the ground is wet, then it rained. For number 3, we have, if it does not rain, then the ground is not wet. And for number 4, we have, if the ground is not wet, then it did not rain. Okay? So as I have said, you are going to read and analyze the statements below so that you can answer the following questions. Okay? So first, we have, which of the 4 statements are always true? Okay? So analyze which of these statements are always true based on your analysis. Okay, so I think you already have your answer. So if your answers are statements 1 and 4, you get it right. So congratulations. Okay? For the next question, let us have, what is the similarity and difference of the 4 statements? Okay, so let's have first the similarity. So I hope you have your idea in your mind. So the similarity of these 4 statements are correct. They are all written in if-then form, or they are all types of the conditional statements. Correct. How about the difference? Correct. We have numbers 1 and 2 are both positive, while numbers 3 and 4 are both negative statements. So that's correct. Okay, next. Let us have compare statements 1 and 2. Okay? So try to observe and analyze statements 1 and 2. What can you say about the 2 statements? So if you notice that the hypothesis and conclusion exchange their positions, so that's correct. So congratulations again. Next, let us have compare statements 1 and 3. How are you going to compare them? So correct. If your answer is the first statement is positive and the third statement is negative, you got it right. Congrats again. Next, compare statements 2 and 4. So how are you going to compare them? Okay, so if your answer is the second statement is positive and the fourth statement is negative, you got it right again. So congrats. Okay, so what do we mean by negation? Okay, so when we say negation, that is writing the opposite of a statement, wherein we have here negate x is equal to 3. If you are going to negate that by writing the opposite, so it should be x is not equal to 3. That's correct. How about if you are going to negate t is greater than 5? What should it be? So that's correct. We have t is less than 5 is correct. Okay. So let's now proceed with the definition. So when we say negation of a statement P is not P, written as, okay, so we have here the symbol not P. And again, the negation of a true statement is false, while the negation of a false statement is true. So I hope you have observed this paragraph or statement in the previous slide that I have, having the 4 statements. So again, the negation of a true statement is false and the negation of a false statement is true. Okay, so let us have more examples by having the converse. Okay, so I have already discussed converse in our previous video. Okay, but still I have here the converse. So let's have. So when we say converse, again, that is the statement formed by exchanging the hypothesis and conclusion, wherein you are going to switch the hypothesis and conclusion parts of a conditional statement. For example, we have here, the given conditional is, if you are a Filipino, then you have black hair. So our converse here will be, okay, if you have black hair, then you are a Filipino. Is correct. Okay, next. Let us now have the inverse. Okay, so what do we mean by inverse? The inverse is the statement formed by negating the hypothesis and conclusion, wherein you are going to negate, okay, the hypothesis and conclusion parts of a conditional statement. So you are going to add the word not usually. Okay, so let's have our example. We have, if you are a Filipino, then you have black hair as our original conditional statement. So our inverse will be by negating. So you will have, if you are not a Filipino, then you do not have black hair. So negate the given conditional for our inverse. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, so let's proceed with the last one. We have the contrapositive. Okay, so the contrapositive is the statement formed by both exchanging and negating the hypothesis and conclusion, wherein you are going to negate, then switch the hypothesis and conclusion of a conditional statement. For example, still we are going to use, if you are a Filipino, then you have black hair. So by exchanging and negating, so you will have the contrapositive, which is, if you do not have black hair, then you are not a Filipino. Okay? So any question in contrapositive? Okay? So if we are going to have a recall on our first example, so our original statement or original conditional statement is, if you are a Filipino, then you have black hair. Okay? If we are going to have the truth value, since we're done with the truth value on our previous lesson, so do you think, is it true or false? Okay, so that's correct. It is true. Okay, next. We have the converse. Okay? So again, our converse is, if you have a black hair, then you are a Filipino. So it is, okay, so that's correct. So it is false. Okay. Next, let us have the inverse. We have, the inverse is, if you are not a Filipino, then you do not have black hair. So it is, okay, false, correct. And then the contrapositive. So if you do not have black hair, then you are not a Filipino. Is it true or false? It is true, is correct. Okay? So any question? So let us have more examples. So for our original conditional, let us have, if an angle is obtuse, then its measure is greater than 90 degrees. So do you think, is it true or false? What do you think? It is correct, true. Okay, let's have now the converse. So you are going to exchange the position of the hypothesis and conclusion. So therefore, our converse will be, if an angle has a measure greater than 90 degrees, then it is an obtuse angle, is correct. Okay, so is it true or false? Okay, so this is true, correct. Next, let's have the inverse, wherein you are going to negate the hypothesis and conclusion. So we have, if an angle is not obtuse, then its measure is not greater than 90. Correct. So is it true or false? That's correct. It is true. Okay. Next, let's have the contrapositive. What do you think is the contrapositive? Exchange and negate the hypothesis and conclusion. So we have, that's correct. If an angle does not have a measure greater than 90 degrees, then it is not an obtuse angle, is correct. So is it true or false? Correct. It is true. Okay, any question? So let's have the next example. We have the conditional statement we have is, if an animal is a cat, then it has purpose. Okay? So as you have noticed, I have already given this on our previous lesson. So let's now have the converse. Okay? But before we are going to have the converse, so let's have the truth value of this conditional. Is it true or false? So correct, that is true. So next, let's have the converse. Okay? Again, what is the converse of this? Okay, so that's correct. We have, if an animal has purpose, then it is a cat. Okay, so is it true or false? The answer here is false. Okay, because, yes, there are other animals that has or that have purpose which are not cats. Okay, like dogs, lion, tigers, something like that. Okay, so let's have the inverse. Okay, what is the inverse of this given conditional? Correct. We have, if an animal is not a cat, okay, then it does not have purpose. Okay, so I already showed you the truth value, which is false. Why? Still, the explanation is that, or the reason is, there are some other animals having purpose that are not cats, like dogs, lions, and tigers. Okay, next, the contrapositive. What is our contrapositive here? Correct. We have, if an animal does not have purpose, then it is not a cat. Okay, so we have the truth value of this is true or false? Yes, this is true. Okay, question? Okay, so if you don't have, so let's proceed. Okay, for another example, we have, if two angles have the same measure, then they are congruent. So is this conditional true or false? Okay, so this is true. Same measure, congruent, they are the same. So that is true. Okay, so let's have the converse. Can you give me the converse of this? So that's correct. If the two angles are congruent, then they have the same measure is correct. So is this true or false? Okay, it is also true. Next, let's have the inverse. Okay, so if two angles do not have the same measure, then they are not congruent is correct. So is it true or false? That's correct. This is true. Let's have now the contrapositive. What is it? Correct. We have, if two angles are not congruent, then they do not have the same measure is correct. A question? Okay, so that statement or that contrapositive is true also. Okay, so let's have another example. If Maria's birthday is February 29, then she was born in a leap year. Is it true or false? It is true, correct. Okay, because when we say leap year, there is February 29. Okay, next, let's have now the converse. Okay, what is the converse of this? Correct, we have, if Maria was born in a leap year, then her birthday is February 29. So is it true or false? Okay, so it is false. Why? Because although she was born in a leap year, maybe her birthday may be February 27, December 25, September 13, or October 5, something like that. So that's why it is false. Okay? Next, the inverse. What is the inverse of this? Okay, so that's correct. If Maria's birthday is not February 29, then she was not born in a leap year. So do you think, is it true or false? What should it be? Correct. It is false. Okay? So it is said that if Maria's birthday is not February 29, then she was not born in a leap year. Okay? So maybe there are some other possible dates to be her birthday, just like the explanation in Converse. So that's why it is false. Okay? Next, let's have the contrapositive. What is the contrapositive of the given conditional? So that's correct. We have, if Maria was not born in a leap year, then her birthday is not February 29. Okay? So if you are going to analyze this, is it true or false? Correct. It is true. Okay? Question? Okay, so if you don't have, so let's have another one. You're going to use the science fact to find the truth value of each. Okay? So we have the science fact that adult insects have 6 legs. Another thing, no other animals have 6 legs. Okay, so let's now have the conditional. I have here, if an animal is an adult insect, then it has 6 legs. Is it true or false? That's correct. This is true based on the science fact given. Okay? So how about our converse? What should be the converse of this statement? Correct. We have, if an animal has 6 legs, then it is an adult insect. Okay? So do you think, is it true or false? What should it be? It is correct. So it is true. Again, just use the science fact. Okay? How about the inverse? Okay? Okay, so we have the inverse, which is, if an animal is not an adult insect, then it does not have 6 legs. So, is this true or false? Okay, so this is also true. Again, by using the science fact, no other animals have 6 legs, so the inverse is true. Okay? How about the contrapositive? Okay, so we have, if an animal does not have 6 legs, then it is not an adult insect. Okay, so is this true or false? So we have here, true. Why? Adult insects must have 6 legs. So the contrapositive is true. Again, use the science fact. Okay, question? Okay, so to sum it up, when we say conditional statement, it is always written in the form if P, then Q. While the converse is always written in the form if Q, then P, because you are going to exchange the position of the hypothesis and conclusion. And then, when we say inverse, that is in the form if not P, then not Q. Or simply, you will just negate the original conditional statement by adding the word not. Okay? And then, the contrapositive is, if not Q, then not P, wherein you are going to negate and exchange the hypothesis and conclusion. Or simply, you may also consider the converse, wherein you are going to negate the converse. Okay? So, by simply applying a simple logic, you will just focus on the converse, but make it sure that your converse statement is also correct, so that you can arrive at the correct contrapositive statement. Okay? Any question? Okay, so let's proceed with this. The logically equivalent statement. So earlier, I have given you the truth value of each statement of the original conditional, the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. Okay? So which of those 4 statements are logically equivalent statements? Okay? So related conditional statements that have the same truth value are called logically equivalent statements. So a conditional and its contrapositive are logically equivalent, and so are the converse and inverse. Okay? So, in other words, the original conditional statement and its contrapositive will always have the same meaning. So that's why, if the original conditional statement is true, the contrapositive is also true. While the converse and inverse of a conditional statement will always have the same meaning. Therefore, if the converse is true, the inverse is also true. But if the converse is false, the inverse is also false. Okay? So if you're going to write the 4 statements in order from the original conditional, converse, inverse, then contrapositive, the first and fourth statements are equivalent. So, they are always having the same truth value. And the second and third statement are equivalent statements. So, they are having the same truth value also. Okay? So, I hope it is clear on the logically statement or equivalent statements. Okay, so that's all for this day. Thank you. Thanks for watching. So still, if you have your question, you can chat me or you can text me. And that's all for this day. Thank you.